So some announcements. Sunday is an all-day sitting at Open Sky. And we'll be celebrating Buddha's birthday. We're playing in birth and death this month. It's all the time, everywhere. So doesn't seem like a problem. And it'll be fun. And we'll have lots of flowers and we'll chant. And so come if you can. And so today we're going to spend a little time with Dogen and Dogen's fascicle, birth and death. And I just changed the schedule a little bit while I was sitting here. Thursday, we're going to do something with Jizo. I had said we're going to do it next week, but we'll do a little something with Jizo on Thursday. And then starting next week, we're going to use Thich Nhat Hanh's commentary on, he calls it, the Sutra on the Full Awareness of Breathing. Breathe, you are alive, which seems to me like a really good, we've been talking a lot about death. Let's talk about alive. And I haven't taught this before and I wanted to, so that will be nice. So I'll start again with just the confession so that you all can kind of track me while I'm trying to track myself. I got off an airplane about 3 hours ago from San Francisco airport and then drove up here. And my husband and I took about a 5-day trip to celebrate his birthday, and we spent most of it hiking in the Mojave Desert outside of Las Vegas, which is pretty extraordinary land. And besides the land, there's petroglyphs everywhere. They're like 4,000-year-old and 6,000-year-old petroglyphs, which is a great encouragement of, it's like sometimes you think, oh God, what's happening? And it's all so bad and we're never going to make it. But somehow seeing something from 6,000 years ago is like somebody made it somehow it's we'll just keep practicing. And then because we couldn't camp because it wasn't that long a trip anyway, we were close to the Las Vegas Strip. So we spent the first night and the last night, which was last night, walking on the Las Vegas Strip, which if you've never been, you probably should. It's really something. It's I was thinking, talk about feeling off balance. I was just, because I haven't had much time to reflect, because Las Vegas doesn't mean that anyway. I would kind of pendulate between, there's so much humanity there, and just this feeling of like moments of just like loving everybody and wanting everybody to be safe and happy and well, and even going so far as chanting the Metta Sutta. And it's like, this is humanity, my goodness. And then of course it's like the front and back foot and walking is like, it is so noisy, and what are these people doing at these loud machines? And I couldn't believe how much alcohol was just, it's like, how do people walk? I can't even imagine how people walk. Or, I mean, I just, so it was really nice to sit down and just focus on breathing with all of you, and breathing in and out, and of that place where, so the teaching in Buddhism is, it's not birth and death benchmarks. It's birth and death. It's birth and death. It's moving. Everything is moving all the time. Everything is birthing. Everything is dying. And we human beings are trying so hard to grab a hold of it. and to make sense of it. It's like, would Las Vegas just stand still for a minute? I just I kept wanting to who are you? And what's your life? And what are you, but you can't do that. And then you go out in the desert and it's so still.
Yeah.
And who are these ancient peoples who are us, in vast time and space, just leaving marks on rocks of deep gratitude to the bighorn sheep and to just life and existence, and go try to make anything simple. I mean, much less your own mind, right? So, this is Dogen, who's the founder of this lineage. I'm just going to read you a little bit from the beginning of this fascicle on birth and death. Because a Buddha is in birth and death, there is no birth and death. Everything is Buddha. Everything is. Everything is interconnected. Everything is alive. Everything is. Everything is. And if everything is, it's arising as form and creating this world across vast time and space, the teaching is everything is Buddha. Everything is everything else. Everything is interconnected and has no beginning and no end. So you could pull out birth and say birth is great and death is bad, but it's like you can't. Everything is born. Every person in Las Vegas, every person who did that petroglyph was born and died. It's just guaranteed. It's just this movement that's happening all the time. It is also said, because a Buddha is not in birth and death, a Buddha is not deluded by birth and death. So everything is, if we say everything is Buddha, it's beyond anything you can comprehend. What makes something a Buddha is that a Buddha understands that if you are identified as a human being in this world, you are going to perceive things as opposites. You're going to perceive good and bad. You're going to perceive right and wrong. You're going to perceive high and low and birth and death. But a Buddha just recognizes that and doesn't get thrown off by it. Just stays stable and steady in the midst of it, which includes being completely off balance. So if you didn't understand any of that, don't worry, I didn't either. So here's a little commentary by Mel Weissman. Birth and death are two sides of the coin of life. Within death, there is birth. It can't be just one way. So every moment is a moment of birth. Every moment is a moment of death. Birth and death are the two dynamics of life. And then he says, life itself is still. Life doesn't change. This has been going on forever. It will continue to go on forever. And there is also a still point right in the center of it. That's what we do when we sit. Completely still. And it's completely movement. And then you think, oh, still. Oh, caught that thought. And then you just keep trying to that's what we do, and that's why we get so confused. No, just here. Just is. Blanche Hartman says, birth and death is a great mystery. We don't know what it is. And then she offers a poem by Mary Oliver. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who's moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who's gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. And now she snaps her wings open and floats away. Everything is so particular in the desert. The lizards are amazing. Growth is amazing. Everything is so particular in the desert. It's so stark. We saw one grasshopper. We saw lots of things, but just, it's not complicated. And it's complex. Mary Oliver says, I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields or the deserts, which I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your wild and precious life? And then Blanche says, actually, I like to say, what is it you plan to do with this one wild and precious life that has been given to you? You know, life is a gift. When he was alive, Suzuki Roshi said something like, just to be alive is enough. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't like it. Sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes it's unpleasant, sometimes it's neutral and you're just kind of humming along and something will smack you or something really lovely will happen. Just to be alive, really alive and awake is, what else do we think we're doing here? She says, whatever can help you truly appreciate the gift of this life and live it with gratitude. Gratitude is just a wonderful thing, and it's available to all of us. So what is it you plan to do with this one wild and wonderful life that's been given to you? And how will you keep alive your awareness of the uncertainty of life in a way that doesn't intimidate you, but that keeps encouraging you to practice wholeheartedly? To practice because it matters. How you live this life matters. I had such a strong, when I was awake, there were times I wasn't awake, walking through the desert, walking through the Las Vegas Strip, how much my state of mind mattered. Past, present, and future. That whoever did those rock petroglyphs 6,000 years ago, their state of mind was affecting my state of mind. There was just no question. It was energetically alive. And how I walked through the casinos, because there's really not, well, the streets too. The streets are amazing. The streets are actually more amazing than but how I walked down the street mattered. You may remember the 5 remembrances. You may remember the 5 remembrances. Everything will grow old. Everything will have ill health and die. Everything that's dear to me and everyone I love, the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground on which I stand. Always, always, always. And of course we forget. Of course. That's how you wake up. You don't go to sleep. How are you going to know what it is to be awake? And then you get more awake. And then the more awake you are, the more you just realize, oh, this is just my mind playing here. Blanche says this, when this body is no longer continuing, life will still continue. And our actions and the effects of our actions is what is connected with this body that will continue. Actions have consequences. Actions have results. Actions of body, speech, and mind. And so there are various teachings in Buddhism about actions. I'm going to tell you here. So I went into a place that was serving food, but was also serving drinks. There was no place in Las Vegas that was not serving drinks. I said to this really sweet person behind the counter, behind whatever, I said, boy, I'll bet you've seen some things. He went, oh, do I have stories? And then he said, I just say it's humanity. It's just humanity. So I said, he clearly had been doing this for a long time. I said, what a compassionate way to view it. He said, oh, and we're doomed. So I told him about the 6,000-year-old petroglyphs out in the desert, and that somehow, somehow something was going to happen and was happening that was bigger than the sum of the parts. In Dogen's fascicle about birth and death, he talks about how to live. There is a simple way to become a Buddha. When you refrain from unwholesome actions, are not attached to birth and death, and are compassionate towards all beings, respectful to seniors and kind to juniors, not excluding or desiring anything, with no designing thoughts or worries, you will be called a Buddha. Do not seek for anything else. And another quote, Master Song San said, forget about Zen mind. Forget about thinking you're ever going to turn into this perfect Zen person. It's like, don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to anybody. We don't know anything about Zen mind. I'm telling you this. Blanche Hartman's also telling you. She was one of the abbesses of Zen Center. She surely must know what she's talking about. I knew Blanche really well before she became the abbess of Zen Center. And you know what? Blanche is just a human being too. We're all just here waking up together. Just meet each person with the thought, how can I help you? Everyone you meet, just meet them. How can I help you? Knowing that you are connected to everyone, knowing that you are all water, just different waves in the same ocean. Meet each person with an open heart and with generosity, including yourself. This is how we can make a difference in our world. I found myself sometimes, I would go from the calm of the peace and quiet of the desert, and then last night this feeling of, how do you save all beings? It's like I had this really deep sense of caring so deeply about everybody, but then you can't go scurrying around. What is that to save all beings anyway? I clearly couldn't go around saving all beings. But what is the place of deep living from that place of just understanding how deeply interconnected we all are? And that once we know that, then you care. And then once you care, Blanche says, the world we live in is not made up of actions that other people do as much as it is primarily the result of our attitudes and our actions. And when you live a life of kindness, when you live a life of compassion, when you live a life of generosity, you get to live that life. What could be better? This makes me cry. It doesn't depend on what other people say or do. It doesn't depend on what other people say or do. It depends on what we say and do. It's wonderful when people meet us and want to live that life together with us in that way, which is what Sangha is. But whatever someone else does, it does not impede us in, for example, the 4 methods of guidance, which is one of Dogen's teachings. The first one always, and in Buddhism, Buddha, the first one always is generosity. Teaching that Buddha apparently said is like, he wouldn't even offer further teachings, that just the ground is generosity. Just keep working with generosity towards yourself, towards other beings, in small ways, big and small. And when you're not generous, don't judge it. Just take a breath and start over again. Generosity, kind speech, beneficial action, and cooperation. These are guidances for our lives that don't depend on other people. They depend on us. Generosity, kind speech, beneficial action. How can I help you? And cooperation, just knowing that you are me and I am you. So how are we going to do this dance of birth, death together? So when you truly realize this life is precious and I don't know how long it will last, what's going to happen next? Cobancino said, when you realize how rare and precious your life is, and how it's completely your responsibility how you live it, how you manifest it. That's such a big responsibility that naturally such a person sits down for a while. It's not an intended action, it's a natural action. Oh, I think I'll just sit down right here in the midst of this moment and breathe and be breathed and feel the ground and feel that in the movement, it will always feel off balance. Like the minute you caught it, it's going to turn into something else. That's the way it is. So you just sit down in the midst of it over and over again forever. So that's what our Zazen is. This is Blanche again. It is sitting down for a while and coming to rest here in this body-mind and generating the heart of generosity, kind speech, beneficial action, and identity action, cooperation. Sitting down and observing what comes up in my mind that hinders me from living the way I want to live. Can I return to my intention again and again and again and again and again and again? There's no end game here. It's forever. That's all. That's what a life of vowing is. I mean, that's my language. A vow of, it's just a life of intention. Is I'm just gonna again and again. Here I am. Here I am. Sometimes I think, wish they would turn out this music. And what is that person doing? What are they all walking around with these things in their hands that are just like these drinks and oh my goodness, we're doomed. And oh my goodness, look at these amazing human beings that we all are in this soup and pot of vast Mojave Desert. And oh my goodness, do you know that I can't even, the degree of stimulation in Las Vegas it's no wonder why you get, I mean, the whole point, it seems to me, is to make you confused enough that you forget who you are, but then instead of forgetting who you are in the way that you want to sit down and save all beings, you forget who you are, and then you want to go put some more coins in the machine. But that's essentially what we're all doing all the time, you know, it's like we're getting distracted somehow, and so we just, our actions of body, speech, and mind are really our only possessions. Our actions of body, speech, and mind are really our only possessions. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh says. This is what Buddha said. This is what we all know. So, allow your awareness of impermanence to be the mind of awakening, to be an encouragement to wake up to things as it is. That's Suzuki Roshi. And find out how you want to live this life. Someone once asked Suzuki Roshi, what's the most important thing? And he said, to find out what's the most important thing. So, how will you find out what's the most important thing for you? And then she ends, and we'll conclude, and then I'll send you off to figure out what you think the most important thing is, but you're not going to figure it out. It's like you listen. That's why you sit upright and grounded, soft eyes, not out there grasping, just resting. There's a place to rest in the midst of all of this activity. And then you can really hear what's the most important thing, what's the appropriate response in this moment. And Blanche says, I urge you to not forget gratitude, to really appreciate this life that you have and to use it well. That was pretty good, huh? Yeah. I can actually make sense after getting up at 4:30 in the morning. Well, with a little help from Mel and Blanche and Dogen and all of you. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. How about if we just get into groups? And the idea, as always, is nobody has to know anything. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to, I mean, please be smart if you want to be smart, but just take a few minutes together and just the question of what's the most important thing? And whatever you say today could be different 5 minutes from now. I mean, the response, but for right now, what's the most important thing?